Hi, welcome to Lumos Talks, powered by Blindspot, a weekly show on growth marketing, straight from the people doing the work in the field at some of the most amazing companies. Our guest today spent 3 years at Bain and Company. He then joined the entertainment studio, the Russo Brothers. From there, he spent a year in Beijing at Schwarzman Scholar, studying tech and geopolitics. Very excited to hear about that. And now he's doing go-to-market and growth at a stealth AI startup. Garrett, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm just going to jump right in. Garrett, your resume doesn't look like anybody else's we've had on here, from Bain to entertainment, then a master's in Beijing, and now an AI startup. You got to walk me through it. I love
Yeah,
it when people's resumes don't have an easy to understand narrative, but it's super interesting. Yeah, walk us through it.
yeah. I had a conversation with someone that said, "Yeah, Garrett, you have a non-linear career," and I think it looks like that at the surface, but I think that the thread that kind of pulls it all along is I realized in my life that the moments where I experienced the most personal and professional growth was when I was in unfamiliar environments with groups of people that were much more interesting than me. So I think that throughout kind of my short career so far, I've just been very excited about trying new things and experiencing new places and new people. Um, I studied finance and econ at the University of Georgia, and
Hmm.
I didn't really know much about like the landscape of career opportunities, and I kind of, in the business school, got involved in a couple different clubs and organizations, learned about management consulting, and for like a ambitious like business major at a state school, you can really go one of two ways: investment banking or consulting. And investment banking did not interest me at all, so I went down the consulting route. Really enjoyed it. Gained this really deep interest and passion for the media and entertainment industry specifically.
Yeah.
So then I went to Agbo and went to lead strategy and operations there. It's the Russo Brothers studio, so they produce film and TV shows and video games.
Yep.
And yeah, then Schwarzman, which was really just a deep interest in China for several years of my life. I really wanted to spend a year abroad in my 20s, and I felt that Schwarzman Scholars would just be a really good way to do that. It was around the same time that I was considering going to business school. And then the startup I'm doing right now was actually a founder that I met through basically cold networking. So her name's Marina Gallagher, and she was an executive at Cameo, and then one of the first employees at Mr. Beast's Feastables. And she saw what was happening in AI and thought about how can we use AI to improve the way that celebrities and athletes can connect with their fans. So we're currently in stealth building that out right now, and I think it's the opportunities are really really exciting in that space.
Mm. Yeah, so I know a lot about that space too. I'm involved in, I don't know if you're familiar with a company called Metaphysic.
Yes.
They do a lot of the. Okay, so I'm partnered with Tom Graham at Metaphysics, so we know a lot about the digital twin space. It is a very exciting opportunity, and it's funny that you brought up sports too, because for anyone that doesn't understand with sports and some sports in particular, especially something like the MLB, they have a lot more. They can do a lot more with their players' likeness than maybe some other sports. So yeah, it's a really great exciting opportunity. I'm guessing what your business plan is now. I'm guessing I'm putting some things together. I want to talk about Bain quickly because that's super interesting because you were there young. I'm curious. What do you think the management consulting industry is going to do in the next few years overall? Do you think it's still like a big area of growth, or do you think with AI, everyone's kind of become a subject matter expert? Where like I would definitely think twice about spending 75,000 or 100,000 a month on a management consultant or something, and that's, by the way,
Yeah.
for anyone that's small. That's a really small manner. That's a really
Yeah.
small deal. That's really
Yeah.
small. So I'm curious to know how you think management consulting is going to change, or if it will. Maybe you're going to tell me it's going to boom. I'm just curious.
The industry will always be around. I think
Yeah.
people vastly underestimate the capabilities of the modern Fortune 500 enterprise. These
Yeah.
these organizations are tens of thousands of employees across tens or even potentially hundreds of countries. They are incredibly complex, and the business environment is becoming infinitely more dynamic and infinitely more complex. These organizations are way too large to be able to navigate that without really, really smart people at the forefront with the level of like executive sponsorship and authority that an external consulting firm can provide. That being said, I think the nature of consulting changes. And I think all the consulting firms have been talking about this. When I was at Bain, I saw it firsthand. We were building a lot of, we called it, it went through a ton of different names, but I think at the time it was called expert client delivery, which was basically we were hiring data scientists, we were hiring software engineers, we were hiring product managers, we were basically building up, a very technical kind of workforce to work hand in hand with like the typical management consulting team that you would think of
Yep.
on product development, and kind of getting like really hands on with the implementation of the recommendations that we would have with clients. Like a lot of people think of consulting as like, oh, big picture strategy, you make a deck and it never gets seen again. And like there's definitely flavors of that work that still exists, especially
Mm-hmm.
in private equity. But
Yep.
when it comes to like a traditional engagement, that's very much not how consulting runs nowadays. You're meeting with a client daily, if not like multiple times a day. You have technical people on the team actually developing products with the client. So it's changing a lot. I think it's becoming much more. I think there's another thing that's happening, which is they're doing more value at stake models, which is essentially instead of just a flat fee model, it's performance based contracts.
Oh, that's super interesting. I love what you said about the big company things. I deal with this a lot too. Big companies who are huge who are across multiple nations with thousands of people, they all, no matter how innovative they want to be, they all move at the pace of an oil tanker, right? For them to make a change, it's like an 8 mile turning radius.
Cool, cool. Okay, take us inside Agbo. Is AGBO? How do you pronounce that? Agbo?
Yeah, it's AGBO. It's stylized in all caps, which a lot of people think makes it an acronym. It could be a
Okay,
little.
fair.
It's not very straightforward. Yeah. So the Russo brothers are these two brothers that have been featured film directors for basically their whole life since college. They're most known for directing Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame. And when they were wrapping up kind of Endgame, they were thinking about really wanting to own something, to kind of to own their own business. And they built this production company, and it's gone through a couple different iterations. But what it is now is a transmedia studio. So it produces film and television shows with like Prime Video, Netflix, Apple TV Plus, and Disney. And then they also have a games business. They brought on the former co-creator of Fortnite, and they have this like really interesting thesis around the convergence of kind of interactive entertainment and linear entertainment. And they really want to build like the next generation of like immersive entertainment experiences. They're directing the next two Avengers films, which is really exciting. Avengers Doomsday comes out in December, which is really really exciting. I was there when we announced that. That was a really cool time. And yeah, I was working with the CEO there. I joined like a month after he did. He was the former head at MGM, and it was really focused on, we were fundraising at the time, we were building the games business, and then a lot of just like random stuff. It felt very similar to kind of a chief of staff role. I was the first kind of full-time strategy hire, so got to see a lot of different aspects of the business, and it was a great experience overall, and it was a really great initial entry into the entertainment industry.
Right. Okay. So a part of like being in all that, what was like one of the hardest growth problem that you ran into?
We were trying.
I can
Yeah.
already answer. I can move. I can answer this for you. Hollywood moves slower than any industry,
Yeah,
right? It's
it's
still
yeah.
it's. I'm guessing that like for real, like it doesn't matter. People don't understand how long it takes, and I imagine it's still slow for the Russo brothers who are the top of the food chain. But it doesn't matter between studios, financings, networks, or distribution, or even the writing of drafts of scripts. Like these things don't move quick. I'm answering for you, but I don't know if that's accurate. But like I
Yeah,
can just Hollywood's slow, still is.
yeah, entertainment is just structurally a very difficult business. I think of it a lot like alchemy. You're creating something from nothing and you're doing
Yeah.
it over and over and over again with a lot of like independent contractors. So like the way a traditional company runs is it, you know, builds a product or it builds multiple products, it acquires customers, and then it sells that product and it continues to sell that same product over and over again, and they improve the product over time. With film and TV specifically, your product is a movie or a television show where like almost all of its revenues are generated in a very short period of time, and obviously there's this like long tail afterwards, but most is generated in that period of time. You don't get a lot of feedback and a lot of iteration because you just kind of, you know, there's no beta, there's no pilot test. I mean you'll test it with like you'll do like test screenings, but you're not like, you can't really iterate on the product. Once a movie's out, you can't you know, you can't edit it. And then to really do it at scale and to have like a business that doesn't look super lumpy, you have to have a slate of like, you know, 10 to 15 films is kind of the output for most of the major studios every single year. And every single one of those from beginning to completion is creating something from absolutely nothing, turning words on a page into, you know, 300 to 400 million dollars of investment for like the top tent poles in the world. And then like, like most movies don't make any money. It's kind of similar
Yeah.
to venture capital, where the, you know, the lion's share of returns are generated by just a small minority of films. So you kind of have to take
Yeah.
bold risks, but you also have to be really disciplined. It's structurally just a very difficult business.
Yeah, I heard a really great quote once, which was the first page of when you finally make your movie and you get it to distribution, the first page of your distribution contract tells you what you're going to get, and the next 54 pages tell you why you're not going to get it.
That's crazy.
Yes, it's a hard business. Okay, so now you're doing go to market and growth of this AI startup and stuff without giving away anything you shouldn't. What's transferring from entertainment into AI, and what's completely different? What kind of things are you? I don't know if you can do that without disclosing, but what kind of problems are you solving?
Yeah, so I mean, it's super early. You know, it's literally me, the CEO and the CTO. We started this about 6 months ago, and I think we're very. I think the problem space is really interesting, and I think that I know that the end stage will probably look a lot different than where we are now. The things that are translating, um, Hollywood is just a different language. It's just a different industry. It's a different ecosystem. It's highly, highly relationship dependent, and um, it has a different language and it has a different kind of way of moving about and operating than like technology and startups. And I think there are a lot of people in Silicon Valley that are building like, you know, AI and entertainment, like creative tooling is really big. Some people are trying to build AI native film studios. And I think that if you don't understand the language of Hollywood, I think it's going to be really difficult to break into the market. The relationships with talent are very, very delicate, and it takes a very adept people person to build relationships in that space. That being said, I think I think Hollywood has a lot to learn from Silicon Valley in terms of just like experimentation, rapid prototyping, focus on merit over like status or networks or like personal backgrounds. Like you know, Hollywood is like one of the most like nepotistic industries in the world. Probably it is not like built on a meritocracy, unfortunately. Um, and I would say another thing is just risk taking. I think Hollywood is an industry that relies more on intuition and gut feel to make kind of bold swings versus data driven empiricism. And that can be really, really valuable at times. It can also be a crutch at times. Um, and I think being able to understand when, like, making a decision off of intuition versus off of data is the right move is important. And I'm still trying to learn that myself.
So I know quite a lot about this. I have an AI native studio. I have for 3 years. We work with a lot of studios. We do commercials to pay the bills, and everything you're saying is totally true. I've been in the room with David Fincher. I've been in the room with all these people, right? And everybody's trying to experiment and figure this out. The thing where tech does work is in this new boom of vertical content. That's the only way that you can start doing data. For anyone not familiar with the microdrama explosion, whether you like it or not, it's sticking around. A lot of these productions will go into productions on a 50 episode series. The first 20 will get greenlit, and they will, if it's fully AI, if they're not having to go back and shoot, and they will start to change narrative based on data. And it's the first time I've ever seen that. But obviously, with a feature film, you can't do that because you're already wrapped and canned and distributed. So it is kind of interesting. And I do like what you said about people can learn a lot from Silicon Valley. So what's really interesting to me is the companies like Higgsfield or in video that you wouldn't necessarily, they're funding films now. And by the way, their ROI is completely, they're funding projects, I should say. And their ROI, they're not worried about long-term distribution. They are literally worried about, okay, how many people can see this? We need to recoup on a $4 million budget. Like, I had that film, the Cully brothers, the Cully boys, the Higgsfield just put out. It was a $2 million film. It recouped in the first 8 days of it being just circulated on new signups to Higgsfield. Like, that's the, and if when they go in the black after that, great. I don't know how long that's going to last because I feel that like that's not going to be like a long-term model. But it's pretty interesting. Like you said, like when we were talking about the studios have a very strange way of getting paid back. They have a very short window of getting paid back. And these platforms that can fund these projects still have a very short window where they get paid back, but the metrics to success are very easier to achieve in theory. And I don't know how long that will last, but yeah, it's definitely super interesting.
The feedback loops of like short form video, micro dramas, social media in general are just very, very compressed. So you can iterate much faster. I think there's one micro drama company that also has like it's like a fan fiction site or something. And they basically just like they just like look at all the literature that people are reading and what kind of stories are doing really well, and then they just greenlight whatever's doing well on that platform.
What I'm really interested in is this with new IPs that are launching, you can now do. I love the idea of, especially with kids and data. That's one thing, right? That's a different subject. But with AI now, you can now make character apps where in theory, I haven't seen anyone do this well, where the kids can interact with their characters in this series or in this film, and you can actually learn what these kids. I mean, maybe humans and adults at some point, but you can actually learn the stories in this ecosystem that they want to hear in the future. Like, there's a lot of like really great, interesting tech plays that can come out of the generative AI space that you can't do that when you have talent. You have Willem Dafoe on set, you've got him for 5 days, and that's fucking it. You're done, right? But if you can create characters from scratch and you can find a way in which the audience can interact with the characters, that data is so valuable because, like we talked about, like very few movies get greenlit. It's very hard to get them greenlit, and you said the risk is crazy high, right? Most of these things don't make money, and I think based on the time, it's probably 55% based on the story, just people aren't interested. They just weren't like, this wasn't a good enough story. If you could start getting not audience feedback from screenings, but audience feedback on world building, that's a big part of your risk margin is lowered.
Entertainment is becoming more interactive and more participatory, and that means that there's going to be these instances where you have co-created narratives. I think like Kane Parsons' Backrooms is a great example of like this was a fan fiction that emerged online from from literally 4chan and then turned into like this big like studio movie with A24 and is now going to have sequels, potentially a television show in development. I think,
but it's an anomaly. But let's be. But I also like I've been in the middle of this debate for 2 months. Yes, I love it, but also it's an anomaly, right? It's really great that like Backrooms and Obsession have done super well this year, right? In my opinion, the two most interesting films of the year. both are fucking anomalies. And this is where Hollywood doesn't do well. Everyone's going to try and now figure out the model and try to replicate it. And I just don't,
Yeah.
A24 are A24 because of how tasty they are, and they take some very great swings, right? They also fuck up occasionally too. They're not always on point, but they take some really great calculated swings. Where Hollywood is going to butcher this is they're all going to be looking for their next thing with the next setup, with the next backstory, with the next 4chan thing. And I will happily eat my fucking hat if somebody does it successfully again in like the next 18 months. I just don't think it will. I'd love it to happen, but I don't know. I think it's an anomaly. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Hollywood has a tendency to they try to reverse engineer anomalies, and this was a huge thing back in like 23 and 24 when we were still recovering from the strikes. It was like every time a movie blew up or a movie did really well or a movie bombed, people were like, "Oh my god, is the box office back? Is the box office dead?" And it's like you can't really like pull out these like broader trends from just like one specific thing that happened, one specific event. But if you kind of have to look longer term, and there is kind of this kind of short termism and focus on immediacy in Hollywood. And I think one of the reasons is because box office data is so granular and so easily available that people just kind of fixate on that all the time.
Yeah, and it's by the way, also it's wildly inaccurate too. It's wildly inaccurate. When you hear about gross on how much a film's made, yes, maybe on a very top line, but you have no idea on the producer back end, you have no idea on the talent split shares, you have really no idea what is this thing netting out at for a studio. You know what I mean? It's kind of it's a little Houdini, it's a little bit David Blaney. It's like here you see this amazing magical thing, and the reality is a lot more difficult than what the headlines always pursue it as.
After everything that you've done and you've gone through and seen, experience, what's like the most common mistake that you've seen marketers or founders make whenever they've had to explain something technical, especially to a mainstream audience?
I think there's a tendency to focus too much on the product and not enough on what it's actually solving. So like leading with like what is your offer versus like what is the problem that your offer specifically solves, I feel like is an issue that technical people specifically struggle with. You have to be like relentlessly, and I'm still very new to this. I'm learning this myself, but like you have to be like relentlessly customer obsessed. And I think that like, oh my gosh, I think the AI companies like really are just like terrible marketers sometimes when they like are thinking about how to name these models and like how to release them. Because like my mom, my dad, like they don't really know like what the difference between Fable versus like Opus versus Sonnet versus Haiku, and they don't really know like what the use cases are for like Claude Code versus Cowork. But if you talk specifically about like what AI can do for you, and then talk about like, okay, then what's like the specific tool or the specific thing you need to use to be able to solve that thing, I think is like way more powerful. So yeah, I just think technical audiences just focus a little too much on the product, and they don't think enough about like what are the needs of the person I'm building this product for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, we're at that part of the show. We do these rapid fire takeaways. We're going to ask you a question. We just want a super short answer, the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
One channel that you would double down on today.
Out of home.
Good
Perfect.
fucking answer. Good answer.
Okay. One metric that actually matters.
Retention.
Another great answer. One growth myth you strongly disagree with.
I think clipping is overrated. I think it's just arbitrage right now.
Controversial.
Okay, and the last one piece of advice for marketers listening.
Talk to your kids, talk to young people, talk to them and figure out like what they care about, what are they talking about, what matters to them. Don't focus on the boomers.
Awesome.
Cool.
Garrett, thank you for coming in today. We really appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. This was a fun conversation.